As the final buzzer sounded on the Pistons' 2023 season, two die-hard fans, Mickey and Harry, each passed out and witnessed a vision. They were visited by Detroit's very own mascot, Hooper, the stallion ablaze, who told them the only way the Pistons would ever win a championship again was if these two men started a podcast. To be clear, they said, do we really have to do this? I mean, aren't there enough Pistons podcasts already? It seems like this might be overkill. But Hooper dunked on them, right in their face, and said, your team needs you. He presented them with a prophecy. Now it is their duty to help Detroit rise again and become champions. The Order of the Blazing Horse. Welcome back to the Order of the Blazing Horse, the only Detroit Pistons podcast based on a mystical prophecy. I am one of those prophets, Harry Moros, joined as always by my co-prophet,
Mickey Jacobs. Thanks for joining us.
And we are so fortunate to be joined for part two. He's back to finish talking where we left off. It's do you want me to go through the whole thing again? I'll do it. You know him from the game that he's shaking his head, but I'm doing it anyway. You know him from the game theory. You didn't memorize it for nothing. That's true. You don't want me to? All right. It's at Motor City Hoops. Bryce Simon. Check out the game theory. Check out Pistons Pulse. Check out all the stuff he writes. And check out the first episode if you want the full thing.
We're going to put the intro back in post. We're gonna slide it back in there.
Mr. Family Man, Bryce, the Nimbus 2000 Simon in the house. Pistons got a new shooting coach. Mickey, how do you feel about the Fred Vinson hire?
I'm really excited about it. I don't know who the shooting coach was before, but I'm curious to hear from you, Bryce. As a shooter, how much of an impact do you think a guy like that could make on the young guys?
If there's the one thing that I'm the worst at coaching and scouting, it's actually shooting. And that's what I did best. But I can't coach the mechanics of it. I just can't. I'm like, it's easy. You catch the ball, you do this, and you just shoot it. It's simple. Just shoot it to the bat. No, I can do a little bit more than that. But I kind of grew up. My mom taught me to shoot initially, and then it was just reps and reps and reps. And then whenever I got to Division I, they showed me some footwork things that helped me grow. But I don't know that I got really into the weeds on this. I've talked to some shooting coaches, and I think that they probably help guys that are bad shooters improve more than they help good shooters go to the next level. Does that make sense? And so what I hope that Fred Vinson is able to do is take Asar Thompson, even Jaden Ivey, who I don't know, do you got probably a bad NBA shooter right now? Is bad too strong? Bad's fair, isn't it?
Not great.
Yeah. It's I feel like when you're as streaky as he is, you can say bad. I think that's fair.
So like I guess my point here is I don't see him making huge strides with a Cade Cunningham or somebody like that, Simone Fontecchio, or I mean, I think Quentin Grimes is a good shooter. I know we didn't see it in the time that he was in Detroit. My overall point here, a long-winded way of saying, I think Asar, Jaden Ivey, and potentially whoever the number 5 pick is, I think those guys benefit most from somebody like Fred Vinson.
I'm curious just because, you mentioned Asar and Ivy. A lot of people talk about, strides that Jalen Duren needs to make on the defensive front. Do you think him spacing the floor potentially should at all be a priority, or do you think he should just focus on rim protection and knowing where to be?
Yes.
This I heard around the world from Bryce.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with these all the time. And sometimes I do think I put the cart above the horse. See what I did there? Yeah. With what I want to see guys develop, I tend to think the defense would be more important of a development for Jalen Duren because the team really needs that. Now, is there a place for a guy who grabs 12 rebounds a game and spaces the floor offensively? Sure. I would be interested in the Pistons having a guy that could do that. For Jalen Duren specifically, I would be okay if he just figures out how to be a really, really good defender and averages 12 points and 12 rebounds and never spaces the floor. I could live. And here's, guys, as long as one of them figures out how to shoot, and when I say one of them, I'm talking about him or Asar, that's okay. You can live in the NBA with one non-shooter. You can figure that out.
I I have faith in Asar learning to shoot because he's a hard worker. 2, because I don't know if like he's had anyone working on his form for a while. And 3, because that short fadeaway jump shot looks so good. Like
So good.
So good. It's crazy. Plus he shot like 30% from 3 after the All-Star break, and that's like not nothing at all. So I got faith in it happening. I also have I'm curious if, let's say, JD does start shooting the 3. Do you think his rebounding numbers go down because he's not in rebounding position the same way he'd been before?
I think they could offensively. I think that's something we would have to be prepared for. I'll use an example of a guy who I'm very high on in the 2024 draft, and that's De'Ron Holmes II at Dayton. And his offensive rebound percentage actually went down from his sophomore to junior year, but that was a product of the fact he was playing on the perimeter so much and shooting some threes and operating DHOs out there and all that. Back to Asar. My theory with Asar is stop trying to make him a standstill set shooter in the corner. Let him jump as high as he wants on his jump shot. And my theory is Asar is a natural athlete. And some natural athletes, it doesn't look quote unquote right or textbook. They just figure it out. That's what's nice about being naturally athletic like that. So stop trying to turn him into this like perfectly fundamentally sound shooter from the corner. Let him do what he does on those 8-footers, which is jump as high as possibly and just flick his wrist. And I think he'll figure it out from there.
Speaking of flick, it sounds like Agorez gave the flick to Monty Williams. Just said, "Peace, dude." They've been hinting at that for a little while. We on our show had debated whether or not it was going to happen. We had a little wager. Mickey's going to make good on said wager later today.
Wait, what was the wager? I need to know. What was the wager? Oh, that's a big side. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be good.
Bryce, you remember the WingStop promotion during the losing streak?
Okay. Yes, I do.
It was just free wings if the Pistons won. So I'm gonna have to eat on the pod 6 of the WingStop Atomic wings.
That was a bad bet. Mickey.
Yeah, we won't subject you to that, but we'll see.
Do you have milk handy?
I'll have some milk. I got some Diet Coke. I've got some stuff. I've got the whole day cleared, just for whatever.
This sounds really, really bad for you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You know what? Like, I'm happy to lose this bet. I'm excited for a fresh start as far as the coaching position is concerned. It was a ride, but it's funny. I just was so excited when Monty got hired. I just remember like, wow, I didn't even think that guy was available, and there was a reason why he wasn't supposedly available. But
yeah, you go.
No, yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for both the coaching position and for the future of my guts after eating these wings.
So I do wish your stomach well. I'm so happy it's not me. I had a medium spice burrito yesterday, and I was crying because it was so spicy for me. That's like in Michigan, so not even like real Mexican food or anything like that. I'm not a spice boy. As we know, Mickey is a spice boy. I'm an ice boy. Moros means frost. Icy. Give me in the winter. This would be if it was me. I'm not Monty. If it was me, if I was Monty Williams and I got fired on Juneteenth and I was making $65 million, I would pay off every incarcerated person's phone bills that Tom Gorris's company has been charging the people for. And that'd be the biggest fuck you, and it would win me super over. That's just what I would do. But, that's neither here nor there. You guys can feel however you want about it. Bryce, how did you feel about the moving on from Mont Dub?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of whatever. I wasn't in this camp of Monty absolutely has to go. I'm going to riot if he doesn't get fired. But I'm perfectly fine and understanding that he did. I get it 100%. I don't think he did a good job this year. I don't know that we could really judge him on a lot of things because the roster was so bad. That's something I go back to. And I've kind of got a lot of pushback that, Monty was a bad coach. I don't think there's any way around that. But I could have stomached finding out if he did a better job with a more exciting roster to coach. I think some of the things that bothered me was the one that really took me aback was midway through the season when all of a sudden it was 40 games in the year, and then he knew who Jaden Ivey was as a basketball player.
after an organizational meeting where everybody sat him down and was like, he can handle the ball.
Yeah, downhill is good for Jaden Ivey. Stop making him stand over there and shoot threes. He doesn't have to start with the ball, but at some point, Jaden Ivey with the ball in his right hand going downhill is a positive thing for him and this team. So that was something that I know a lot of people will talk about how he acted on the side, like just kind of his demeanor, and it seemed a little bit lackadaisical and uninterested. I have a hard time judging body language in those situations, but I understand where that came from. Here's my thing with coaching. We don't see a lot of what is truly important. We don't know the rationale behind of a lot of decisions. So I have a hard time judging it. But yeah, there was a lot of head scratching things, and I'm perfectly fine with it. Like the organization made the decision. They have their reasons for it. It wasn't good last year. Let's move on, find somebody new.
I'll say this. He didn't lose the locker room. And in a situation like that, that's a feat. Like it honestly is pretty impressive. Also, he was going through family stuff, like terrible family stuff. That of course that's going to take your mind away from it. And so I don't fault him for taking the money. It's a bummer, like what happened. I don't think he's a bad coach overall. I think last year was not a good version of what he can do. And I'm happy that he's moved on. In general, I would love to see some schemes with more player action for everybody instead of standing around. I feel like that's a little bit of a dated way to be.
And if you want to give him another quote unquote pass, he hired Dan Burke to be his defensive guy and lost him 3 games into the season yet again for personal reasons of some sort. Like I just saw James Edwards tweeting at somebody that if Dan Burke wanted us to know why he left, we would know why. And the fact that we don't probably means it's none of our freaking business.
We don't got to know. We just like Wiggins, we don't got to know what's going on in there. Like let people have some freaking privacy.
We don't have to know. I'm sure the organization, we don't have to know. Like it truly, these are the type of things that I truly don't think are any of our business as fans or media or whatever. So I understand people wanting to know, but we don't need to be privy to that stuff. So again, I want to be clear because I can already hear people coming at me. I don't think Monty Williams did a good job. I am perfectly fine with him getting fired and the organization moving on, but it wasn't a deck that was necessarily stacked in his hands to be successful. He also didn't play his hand very well. So let's move on. I just want to give this caveat. 12 months ago, a lot of people were saying the exact same thing about Dwayne Casey, and
not me.
And we're extremely excited about hiring Monty Williams or about potentially hiring Kevin Ollie. Kevin Ollie's nowhere in these head coaching conversations right now, and we just came off 12 months of not very good Monty Williams. What's my point? That we got rid of a coach that we thought was awful for the organization, and it got replaced with something that wasn't any better.
So, I mean, it seems like as far as players and stuff, or players are, I guess, coaching, we don't know who's going to be the next coach, but we have seen what Trajan Langdon has done so far as what he's been interested in. He's brought over Michael Blackstone, and he brought over Vinson. That's
J.R.
two
Holden.
And Holden's from a different
He's from
team.
Brooklyn, but they played together overseas.
Right. They played together overseas. Plus, he was part of the Brooklyn organization at one point during like the Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, I believe, drafting era. So like he brings in people he's familiar with, which means he's kind of got a type at this point, right? It's like we know roughly about what he's like, so we have an idea of potentially would be in the draft. Do you have an idea of who you think he's going to go for, and do you think the hiring of Vinson makes any difference to that?
No, I don't have a name right now, and it's funny because like I already see people crushing Borrego on Twitter that how bad he would be, and then I see these other names.
I'm sorry, I meant for player because we went over coach. We don't know.
My fault.
No, I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean to mislead you. As far as coach, we talked about this off air. Who friggin' knows? We don't know. Yeah. We'll find out. We care about the players at this point. You're a draft expert. We got you on to talk about the draft. So. I'm just saying, as far as the players or the player types he likes and familiarity type he likes, do you have a grasp on who you think it's going to be?
So what we're working with, what do we think his player type is? Long, athletic,
potentially
defender,
not a shooter. Yeah.
Potentially guys that can't shoot that then his guy Fred Vinson can develop, right? Like if we're working under that, I think there's two names that probably three names, but two names that really pop off to me. The first is Steph Castle, right? Like I feel like Stephon Castle was the big winner, if you want to say it that way, in terms of ingratiating himself to
the winner of the Pistons lottery. Jeez,
the Pistons fan lottery, in terms of all of a sudden, hey, we can draft this guy because we have a coach that can develop his shooting. So I think Steph Castle. I actually think people are going the other way with Montas Buzelis, saying, hey, now that Weaver's gone, that was going to be a Weaver guy and all of that. I actually think Buzelis makes more sense if we think Fred Vinson can develop somebody, because for me, if you tell me Fred Vinson can develop Montas Buzelis into a 38% three-point shooter, that's like exactly what this roster needs right now. So to me, I think Montas makes more sense in regards to that. He has great length and all of that, very athletic. I think the other name would probably be Ron Holland, is another one, just like this athletic, rangy. He's a good defender in a different way than Steph Castle, but with real shooting concerns. I think, though, did Langdon say somewhere that he didn't like the Ignite guys? Maybe
we've heard so much. Is that a fact, Mickey? Did he say that?
No, I've definitely heard that floating around. I think for this draft class anyway, but I don't know how substantiated that is.
I'm not going to put any names to it, because now it's going through my head whether it was an article or somebody on a podcast or something like that. And I don't want to credit to somebody that didn't say it. So I'm pretty sure I had heard that, but I'll leave it there.
I saw that in the Sphere as well. And if that's true, I mean, that takes off Matas. That takes off, or Matas. That takes off Ron Holland. So I guess questions I would ask about three other guys, if that's all right to talk about these three other dudes. And sure. One of them I'm going to bring up because when you put it to me at the first part of this episode, and I was like, I don't know, he's a small guy. And then I saw his wingspan. And I was like, oh my God, actually, this makes like so much more sense to me, at least. But the two guys I'll bring up first are Tisdale Sloan and Cody Williams. And third, do you think Devin Carter would fit on the Pistons team?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the one guy I want to say that maybe is anti what we just talked about is Reed Shepherd. I don't know that Reed gets there to 5. I think if the Rockets make that pick for themselves, it's Reed. But if the Rockets use that pick to do something else, maybe he does get there to 5. So that's the first name that pops off to me in terms of maybe he doesn't fit this. Tinjon Saloon definitely fits this. Tinjon Saloon is really interesting, plays hard as hell, is already built for an 18-year-old, just a lot of foundational things, but a lot of rawness that he has to work on. Cody Williams seems to be drawing a lot of buzz right now in general, not just to the Pistons, but a lot of like top 10 stuff. And so I don't know, you know how these games get played in the media. Who knows if it's right or wrong, true or false, but I think he would fit that mold that we just talked about. And then Devin Carter is really good, guys. I don't know if he's top 5 or not. I actually do think Devin Carter is a really nice fit to Cade Cunningham. I'm not campaigning for him to go number 5. I'm just saying that if you talk about a guy you want to put next to Cade Cunningham in the backcourt, it would be what? Somebody that spaces the floor, somebody that then can take secondary ball handling, second side creation, and defends the primary perimeter offensive player on the other end. I think that's what Devin Carter does pretty well if the shooting is real. His shooting numbers were a little rough before this year and then took a major jump. And so I do have a few questions about whether the shooting is as good as what we're kind of talking about it right now.
Just to bring it back to Castle for a second, has he come out and said that he wants to play the point? And if so, is that concerning, or is it just like if he's here, he's going to play whatever we need him to play?
My feel and understanding is that Steph Castle and his representation would like to use that to get Steph Castle where they want Steph Castle to go. I'll leave it there.
Got it.
Home of what Charles Barkley calls the not so prettiest women in the world, I think, is the rumor. But, you know, I'm not going to spur him too bad for all that. I think, fine, whatever. Let your management do whatever they want to do. All the players we talked about are going to be pretty solid players. So there's a lot of places we can go in the draft. That's fun. But free agency is the other half of our team. And
an important part.
Huge part, right? Especially with our roster, especially with how it's been as of recently. There are roughly like 8 guys on this team right now that might be long-term pieces or like next season pieces, but that could be as small as what, 5 potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I always say 8, right? With the 4, what people refer to as the core 4, and then you have Sasser, Stu, Grimes, and Fontecchio is the 8, right, that we would be talking about here.
For sure.
And here's my thing. How do you have to move somebody, right? Like,
yes.
So let's say you draft number 5, that's 9. Unless they just completely go sin contract, like they do 3 Joe Harrises in free agency, which I do not have an appetite for whatsoever. I'm okay taking on, I don't want to call it bad money, but guys that are getting paid more than what they're worth, but are still actually good basketball players or can provide value. I'm okay with something like that. But if you do that, let's say you sign 3 competent basketball players in free agency. Now you're to 12 dudes. I'm all about depth. But you're talking about 12 dudes who all want to play. Nobody wants to sign with Detroit and then not play. You don't want to draft Sasser 25 and then stick him on the bench and he only plays when somebody's in foul trouble. So I kind of wonder if I don't want to sell on any of these guys. I'm interested in all of them, but I do wonder if at some point it just out of necessity of being able to give the attention and the minutes to the guys that need it, if you do have to consolidate 1 or 2 in some sort of move.
I think it makes sense. And I think while you don't want to sell, it's because you believe in these players. Of course we believe in these players. Like, we follow this team. We drafted them high. They're all young. But, like, if it's not going to work on this team, just because it works on another team, it's no big deal. Like, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for their situation. And if it's a move that you can make to make your team better, that's great. I know that people have been talking a lot about Malik Monk as a signing for Detroit. We talked a little bit about Quentin Grimes earlier today and, like, how bad he shot. Now, Alec Burks had a streak last year where he shot abysmally, and he is a scorer. And then he came right back on, super strong, after, months of being injured. He had an arm injury, right? Shoulder or something like that. Forearm, maybe it was forearm. Regardless, you have an injury, you're missing a lot of shots. Quentin Grimes comes to Detroit, he's injured, and they're still playing him a little bit. Lower body injury. We're talking about shooting from deep. So much of shooting happens from your legs. We just talked about Asar, like actually jumping up and shooting.
Sure.
Do you think there's a realistic chance that Quentin Grimes could be the answer at 2, as like a starting 2 for at least next season for the Pistons?
I think, I don't know where I land on realistic, but yeah, I like Quentin Grimes. I like the idea. We just talked about this with Devin Carter, right? What is the type of archetype of player next to Cade Cunningham? Quentin Grimes theoretically checks a lot of the boxes that I just said with Devin Carter. Floor spacer, right? So let's go 2 year, his second year in the league, 39% on almost 6 attempts from 3. Box checked. I would say Devin Carter can play a little bit more on ball, but Grimes had 2.1 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. So there's a little bit of that where I don't know that I would refer to Quentin Grimes as a second side creator. He's not going to like be your point guard in a second unit or something like that, but he can attack a closeout, I think, and get the ball where it needs to go. And then I think he can do the other part of that, which is the defensive part. He can go to the other end of the floor and defend. And so what this comes down to is, do you think that's who Quentin Grimes was? That year he played 30 minutes a night, averaged 11 points, and again on 47, 39, 80? Or is he the guy we saw last year between New York and Detroit that shot 34% from 3 and less than 40% from the field? I don't know the answer to that. I would like to hope that he is the guy we saw in his second year, but that's what Trajan Langdon has to decide, right? And I think that's where who they pick with number 5 starts to give us some insight into what Trajan thinks about some of these players. Because if he takes a Devin Carter, Reed Shepherd, Steph Castle, I think that either tells you how he feels about a Jaden Ivey and or a Quentin Grimes, and that maybe there's not a ton of faith there.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because Harry brought that up, and I think comparing his money and his stats to Malik Monk, like assuming his injury was affecting his stuff towards the end of last season, like I don't know if I'm super psyched about paying Malik Monk. Like, and I love Malik Monk. I think he's super fun to watch. I think he's just like a highlight machine, but their stats really aren't that different, except for when Grimes was injured.
No, so to answer the question, if you tell me that Grimes is going to be the guy I highlight, in his second year in the league, I would rather just keep Grimes at the money he's at and all of that. I'm pretty sure there, because Grimes is the better defender. And listen, you won't find a bigger Malik Monk fan. Like, I really like Malik Monk. I'm a fan of Malik Monk, but I don't know how high you have to go to get him out of Sacramento. Like, what does Malik Monk want to leave Sacramento? They can pay him just a little less than $20 million a year. I think it's like 478 or something like that. So is 480 going to do it? Or do you have to, like, does he want 4 for 90 because he's going to Detroit? Do you have to promise him a starting spot? Would you pay him 4 for 100 to get him out of Sacramento? Now we're talking crazy. So I think that's where it's at with Malik Monk. Is as much as I like him, if you have any sort of faith in Quentin Grimes being the player, I also hate the process. If they move on from Grimes, you essentially traded Boyan and Burks for nothing. Like, you could almost justify that trade. And I know this was the previous administration anyway, because of Grimes. But if you just move on from him 6 months later and pay $25 million to a free agent at that position, that ends up being even worse process than what it looked like for Boyan and Burks.
I got faith in Grimes. I really feel like being injured, playing Tom Thibodeau minutes, which is a ton of minutes, and then getting traded to one of the worst teams in history in Detroit, like that's rough. I think also, the outside perspective sometimes when you come to Detroit, if you don't live here, you're like, oh man, that sucks. Detroit actually rules. So maybe it's like warmed up to him a little bit. Detroit's an awesome city. Like, I've seen so many comedians come through and be like, oh, this place blows. And like, no, you're an idiot. You haven't been here.
You tweeted about this the other day, right? Wasn't somebody trying to bash Detroit? I saw you. Me and my wife loved Detroit. We didn't make it out there this year because I'm doing other travel stuff. We love it. Every time I've come there, I've had a blast. I've had great food. Everybody's super nice and polite and amazing and welcoming. We've done some of the sightseeing stuff. Detroit is awesome. And it annoys the hell out of me when I tell people I'm going to Detroit and they make some snide comment. Like, no, shut up. Like, Detroit is a really nice city that I love going to. So people can kick rocks on that.
they can kick ruins in Detroit. I used to have a joke about how Detroit was a great place to go to because it's the only place in America you could go see ruins. But that was 20 years ago, and it's different now. I think that's part of it. It's lazy because the change happened so fast, and not enough people are like coming and checking stuff out. But come to Detroit. I am a part of the Michigan Tourism Society by proxy, I'm assuming, because I'm advertising for the city so much. Detroit's a great city. So I think just the idea of like coming here, coming to the worst team, being injured, playing so much, losing your starting spot on top of it, like that's a mental toll. But if you get a whole offseason to work out a little bit, get healthy, get stable, realize you're playing with Cade. I think also another bad part was he was playing on all those all bench lineups as like the initiator, and like that's not him. Yep. That's crazy to think that it should have been
not
him.
At all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a sneaky part. I can't remember who told me, like, veteran backup point guard. They tried to do it with Monte Morris and it didn't work, but they need to, because Sasser's not like a primary initiator right now either. So that's another part. Like, we're talking about Grimes versus Malik Monk. The better argument may be Sasser versus Malik Monk, because that's kind of the role that it looks like Sasser wants to play, or was being asked to play at least by Monty Williams, or maybe that's what he wants to do. I don't know. So yeah, Grimes will be interesting. And at the end of the day, it was an awful team that he came to, like, we just loved up the city, which is true, but this team was bad last year with, like you said, they didn't lose the locker room, but I can't imagine energy was high. And there's got to be a new influx. Like, anytime there's change, there's a new influx of energy. So this isn't like a Troy Weaver, whatever, or Monty Williams, whatever, but Trajan has to bring in some sort of new energy along with the people he's bringing in. Like, it has to be exciting for all of these players to go, man, Fred Vinson, one of the top names in terms of shooting coaches in the world, in the NBA, is coming to coach us. That has to energize them. And then you're going to get a new head coach whoever it is hopefully brings some sort of energy with that as well. And I should note that Grimes shot 36% from three in his games with the Knicks. Like, his 3-point shooting was just so bad with Detroit that it brought it down, a couple percentage points. So, he's career 37% on 5 attempts. That's, again, this archetype makes. Here's the crazy part. I think we talked about this. Troy Weaver's deadline didn't suck. I kind of liked the idea behind what he did with Fontecchio and Quentin Grimes. It just took 3.5 years to get there.
I liked Moose and Gallo for
Yes.
the 5 minutes that we had.
Why did we just waive those dudes? What?
I don't know. Like that was
Because we were going to win or something. We had to get out in front of that.
So, here's the thing though, Mickey. There's no way this team was tanking. That would be the most egregious error ever if this team was trying to tank for this draft. If that's what people think was actually going on, then everybody should have got fired, because this was not the draft that would make any sense at all.
I want to say, as far as tanking goes, because I think people are going to think maybe the Pistons are tanking next season because of how hot that draft is. A lot of great names.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't care how much the Pistons do. Like, I don't think there is any realistic way where they will not be in the lottery next year. And that's even if they get significantly better. You could acquire a second all-star, an all-star, like a legit all-star. You're still not winning more than 30 games. You're still finishing bottom 5, maybe bottom 10 in the NBA. It's not possible. I think it's very likely that we see some serious growth out of our young players, that we have a much more watchable basketball team, that we win maybe 15 more games, and they still are not a good NBA team overall. And I think that's totally fine. So do whatever you can to improve this team, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. 28 wins puts you with like the 7th worst record or something like that. This past year, every year is a little bit different, but that's what I want to see, is some real growth, some real improvement, add some real dudes to the roster that has real spacing, real defense, some real depth. Go win 25 to 28 games. You're still going to get a top 7 or 8 pick. Maybe you hit the lottery and jump into the top 4. We just saw this with the Hawks that made the jump. I'm not saying you don't even have to get all the way to 1 with the 2025 class right now. You don't have to get to 1. Everybody thinks of this as the Cooper flag. Ace Bailey is really, really good. There's also some other dudes I'm pretty excited about that obviously it'll change, but you don't have to get to number 1 to get somebody exciting in 2025. So I think it's okay for them to go win some games this next year. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm cool with it. I mean, as we've seen, just because you're the worst team in the league does not guarantee a top pick.
We've seen it we've seen the other way, right, Mickey? Why would we want to go have the worst record again just to make it 3 years in a row of going 1-5?
Yeah, and by the way, I wasn't even implying that they were tanking. I was just like so braced for the worst all the time.
No, that was you brought up the tanking, so it gave me a chance to go be an old man, get off my lawn, which I am prone to do now in my old age on all these podcasts I get to talk on.
Get off his
wheat.
In
terms of off-season strategy. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying get off his wheat. That's it.
No, but in terms of off-season strategy, you've talked on a lot of podcasts, you've talked a lot about how who we draft kind of depends on UFA. Like, there's all these factors. Without putting too much pressure on you, if Trajan were to be like, here's the keys, Bryce, what do you want to do? So, you're talking about winning a few more games while still trying to retain a lottery pick. What do you do with the team if you can do anything?
I think the first thing I would have to make a decision on, and I'm going to throw this back to you guys. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts, because I've wavered a little bit and I've heard both sides of it. Do you think they need to get a second star, or at least a bucket getter or scorer or something? Or do you think that they should just fill it out with like true role players, the Najee Marshalls of the world and those type of players, and just build real depth like that? Let Cade be the dude and see if Jaden can be the number 2 guy or somebody else. Because I've pitched actually the opposite of, I don't mind them trying to get a dude that can really get some buckets. So where are you at on that, Mickey? Because I think that's at the core of where you start this process.
Yeah, I mean, I think that high-end role players around Cade would be interesting to see.
Okay.
But I think if we go out and get a BI, which I was not super excited about, like you said, it's not gonna Cade and Brandon Ingram and company is not gonna beat the world. I still think that's gonna be like a 30-ish win team, but I want to see better looking basketball. So, no one's gonna fit perfect. Like we're not gonna get like a Lowry Markkanen or someone like that. So
Or Mikal Bridges, right? Mikal Bridges would be unreal. That the Pistons are getting outbid if they even try to get in on that.
Yeah. So, I was like, I don't know about BI's contract, but at this point, I think I'd be fine with it. And then again, if we just like had like Najee Marshalls and just guys that could play and space the floor and play defense and see how that goes and not, commit to a long-term contract, I'd be okay with that too. But I'm leaning towards give like a secondary or primary bucket getter for Cade to play off and just see how that looks.
Harry, where are you at on that? I'm interested because I think this is the heart of where the offseason starts, and that dictates every decision.
So, as discussed, I don't think there's anything the Pistons can do to get out of like the cellar for the next year or so. I also don't think there's any way they can acquire like a star without mortgaging future assets, which they barely have any of. And so with that in mind, my plan, if it were me, I'd be like, okay, what can we do to keep Cade happy and believing in our system at a slow enough pace, at like the most minimal increase while we can still build assets because we don't have any, and we can still find the right guys around him. Because like we said, ideally you put a shooter around him so you can draft Dalton Connect. I think Dalton Connect and Cade would be like a crazy pairing as far as offense goes. Defense, then you're in some trouble, so you have to get Claxton, you have to get a star to like stay out there, and you really have to hope like Grimes work out, and who knows how that goes. Like again, like if you can find a partner for Cade in the draft, that'd be ideal. The slim chance that maybe Asar can become like a secondary creator if his handle and his shot like change up. I know it's a lot to ask. I do think it's possible. It's essentially the role he was playing at OTE. And like I said, he's a hard worker. So who knows? I wouldn't go after Ingram because I think you'd have to give up too much, even though I think he's the most like accessible star available. And I don't think they'd have to give up that much. But I don't know who else to go after. Like, truly, you brought up, like, going after Bridges and getting outbid. Let's say you don't get outbid. You still gave away your future for 3 years of Bridges, and, like, you don't have that much to go for. So, what I like about Najee Marshall, it reminds me a lot of when the Pistons of my time brought on Ben Wallace and Chauncey Billups. These are guys that were not stars on their team, but they had some promise, and then they came to Detroit and had a serious role. So you have this ability to potentially show more than what you were showing at your previous team. I go for role players here, and I go for improvement, and I keep trying to draft and hope I get lucky in that regard.
So I think I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards that. So I started out this offseason with just the role players, right? Because listen, I'm a huge Jaden Ivey believer. So what I think I'm at is let's fill out with the role players, and I'll throw out some names and see where you guys are at. They're names that stick out to me, including whoever they draft. Like maybe they take a swing on Ron Holland maybe and see it, because I think Ron Holland has a chance to be a real two-way wing, like dude who gets buckets and defends on the other end, and that's insanely valuable in the NBA. You brought up Dalton Connect. I think Dalton Connect's floor is a floor spacer, and Dalton Connect's ceiling is a dude that goes and gets buckets at all three levels. And that would be interesting to see. Go ahead.
If I can interject on Dalton Connect, I feel like if you're skeptical about Dalton Connect, I question whether you watched him play basketball like in games, because the shot making is insane. Like it's so crazy. He can pull up from anywhere at any time. He can drive. He can dunk. And he's clutching big moments. That Purdue-Tennessee game in the tournament was so nuts to me, just watching those two. I believe in Edey, and I believe in Connect so much just because of that game. And, I mean, other games as well, but still.
Yeah, so I think I'm leaning a little more towards that, and maybe giving another year to see if J.I. can do it, if whoever they pick at 5 can do it. I know some people believe that Asar can kind of ascend into that type of role. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards that. Also, it does put a little bit of pressure on Cade, but it's in a better context, right? Like you're asking him to do a lot, but there's a ton of spacing and ideally defense around him, so you can see how good he can be. So I'm looking at guys like, we brought up Najee Marshall, Who was another name I had here as I scrolled through the list? DeAnthony Melton would be interesting. You brought up Claxton. Restricted free agents like Patrick Williams, Isaac Okoro, and Obi Toppin. I know people don't like Toppin because of the defense, but Toppin plays a position that I feel like this team needs. And I believe the corner threes especially were really good.
His shooting efficiency was
year.
Crazy. And he did an East Bay in the playoffs. That's nuts. I fucking love that.
So 40% from the corner this last year with Indiana, and he shot 40% overall from three. He's gotten better every year of his career. Jalen Smith is another guy, like as a big who maybe can space the floor a little bit. Shot 42% from three this last season. So those are the type of names. And then I've even said this. I don't like the idea here, but if it's a short contract, if you could give me the Bruce Brown deal for Tobias Harris as a plan B or plan C, I could walk away. Harry does not like this. I could walk. I wouldn't be happy about it, but there's worse outcomes because you're not giving up assets for that. And he is still a competent NBA player at a position of need. And so again, like it would be a 1 year. If they sign Bruce or Tobias Harris for 4 years, I would be very, very upset. If they sign him for 3 years, I would not like that. If they give him a 1+1 with a club option, I could live with that if they miss out because they're not going to be able to hit on all these guys. These guys have other suitors also.
It's fair. And he does bring offensive competency. I think he does not bring defensive competency.
That's the thing, right?
After watching players who did not play D last year, it just drives me crazy. I don't think it's possible anymore to not play both positions at least somewhat respectably anymore.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And again, like that's where I think people would push back on Obi Toppin, but at some point you do have to spend the money. And so that's why I say like Harris would be a plan C for me where you miss out on Najee Marshall and you miss out on Patrick Williams and you try to trade for whoever that maybe is getting a little bit overpaid, but somebody else ends up getting him. And it's like, okay, well, we have $40 million left. What are we going to do with it? Let's give Tobias Harris 20 for a 1+1 or something like that. And he can come in and again, play competent basketball. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards that, guys, of just these role players, but ideally the 3 and D, as you just said, Harry. And that's why I always bring up Najee Marshall, because I think he's really good defensively, along with being able to space the floor a little bit.
And we have a front office that's familiar with him on top of it.
Yeah.
So, when it comes down to the Brandon Ingram versus Najee Marshall debate, we're going to get a pretty good idea of, what the right move is there. Right? So that's nice, I think, to have be going on for us. So, Mickey, did you have another question for Bryce as far as the free agency stuff went? We brought up Isaac Okoro a little bit in the RFA.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Okoro. I love Patrick Williams. Again, 3 and D guys. I liked watching Obi Toppin in the playoffs. He made a little bit of a difference. I guess I was just wondering, along the lines of a Brandon Ingram or a Zach LaVine, a potentially disgruntled or star that might want out of where they're at. Just what do you think of Colin Sexton?
I like Colin Sexton. I think Colin Sexton is a good basketball player. I don't know about here. I hadn't considered him for Detroit. My initial reaction is no, but how much can he play defense, right? That would be the thing. Can he guard? There's times where I think okay, at the point of attack, he might be okay. Maybe he can take some of those matchups. I do think he can score the basketball. I would lean towards no, even though I think I like Colin Sexton more than most people would.
Yeah, I was curious about that one because it's not a name I've heard, and I just have no idea what the Jazz are doing anyway.
Do they?
Yeah,
they're so weird because they're just a middle team with some good players and a pretty good slew of draft picks. I just don't know. I don't know what direction they're going to go in.
Sexton is This is interesting because, man, like you talk about like Malik Monk. Well, Sexton's been better offensively than Malik Monk. 38% from three for his career, over 39 the last 2 years, almost 50% from the field overall, even for a smaller guard. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Mickey. I don't know what Utah would want for Colin Sexton. What is the contract situation?
So he's averaging like 18 mil through 2026, which is super cheap.
That's not bad.
That's a good deal, especially going into like the new cap in the near future. I mean, that's like just more than Isaiah Stewart money, right? So
yeah, I think this would come down to what you think about him point of attack defensively. Like, do you think he could at least do that on the defensive end? Does he take that just a little bit? Or I think you're falling into the same conversation we had earlier of he doesn't do that, J.I. doesn't do that, Marcus Sasser does that, and then now all of a sudden are these guys just repetitive? And instead of at least giving minutes to J.I. and Sasser, they're having to, you're having to share it with a guy like Colin Sexton. So talent-wise, it is kind of interesting. And yeah, that wasn't a name I had thought of. That's a good one.
Everybody's on the table here. All right. Okay. So Bryce,
guys, we just got a trade.
We traded
not for the Pistons, but an NBA trade.
Break that news. Breaking news.
Bulls trading two-time all defensive guard Alex Caruso to the Thunder for Josh Giddey.
Wait, straight up?
Why would they do that?
There has to be more, right?
Yeah.
Where are the picks?
There's got to be picks.
I don't even hate it, honestly, for either team, as long as Chicago got something more back than just Josh Giddey.
According to sources,
Lakers fans punching the air right now.
I don't think so.
Just a straight up trade?
Me and Sam are going to get cooked because we did not have Josh Giddey's value this high.
Well, I know
Amari tweeted they didn't get a single pick from the team with all the picks.
Yo.
That's crazy.
I know Sam on your guys' podcast had mentioned some of the deals he heard offered for Caruso were pretty nuts. That's shocking because the other part of it too is, didn't everybody know OKC was going to try to move off Giddey?
So this was kind of our theory whenever I think we moved Giddey for like a first-round pick and a second-round pick or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a late first-round pick in this year and then a second-round pick also. Obviously, Caruso is worth way more than that. But I think part of our theory was, what leverage do the Thunder have with Giddey whenever you just refuse to play him in the playoffs? And he's extension eligible, right? He's the same draft class as Cade. So somebody's going to have to make a financial investment in him. And so this is way more value than we assumed that they would get. Good for the Thunder. Like the rich get richer. Good for them.
And good for the Pistons because they don't have the worst front office in basketball. As far as that goes.
Not anymore, baby.
I got so many Chicago friends, and I feel so bad for them. They've had it real rough. Like, I know we had like a historically bad season, but being in the middle sucks. Having assets.
How do you not get a BS first round pick? Like the Thunder we make all these jokes, but some of those first round picks aren't that great. You didn't get a single one of them?
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Caruso's a hot commodity, I thought.
So this is what will be fascinating to come out over the next couple of days. Were they really getting offered 2 first round picks? Maybe those were fake first round picks. Maybe we're overvaluing Caruso on the market. Again, how do you overvalue one of the best defenders? I will say this: Caruso is 30 and he's about to get a contract as well. So I wonder if they misplayed their cards in terms of that. I think Caruso is going into the last year of his deal, which is an awesome contract, but I do believe it's his last year of that deal.
Okay, so it's the last year of that deal. He's going to be 31 next year. So even if he is really good, he's still not going to make fat, crazy stack. It's just not going to happen. Giddey is probably going to command some serious money.
He probably gets paid more than Caruso, right?
Right.
Wouldn't you guess? Yeah.
And he's a worse shooter, and he's a worse defender. That's a crazy trade. That's great. It's really a crazy trade.
What am I missing?
Well, I wonder
what am I
this
missing?
in Alonzo of it all. Like, if anything, I don't know if he's back or if he's coming back.
Well,
But,
my instant thought, Mickey, was like Ayo Dosunmu was pretty good for them down the stretch, and Kobe White was awesome this year.
I love Ayo and Kobe.
So maybe they think they can play all three of those guys together, but we just saw that Giddey can't play off ball. So now you're going to take the ball out of Kobe White's hands after. Here, I will also say this completely changes the number 11 pick for Chicago, because obviously they're not going to take a guard at number 11 after making this trade. So
then, like, who? I get though. I don't know. It's gonna be nuts. It's really crazy. I still can't get over that they didn't get a pick out of that trade. Also, like you said, good for the Thunder. Like, the Thunder are a very, very exciting team. I was sad to see them go in the playoffs. This will just make them better.
I keep looking for tweets to tell me that there was a draft pick, and all I see is that there wasn't a draft pick.
Straight swap.
How is this possible?
Well, okay, so last year Chicago didn't trade Caruso. They didn't trade. Why am I blanking on his name? Mr. Midrange, great player, DeRozan. DeMar. I was thinking D. Yeah, DeMar DeRozan. They didn't move Vooch. Like, it seems like he's going to be impossible to move as a whole.
Didn't they extend Vooch? Am I crazy, or did they? Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was. Yeah. Vucevic. Yeah. Well, not this before this year, but yeah, he's 20 million, and he's got 2 more years now. They do some crazy things in Chicago.
Oh, Bulls fans.
Wild.
Well, I was going to ask you, what teams do you see getting worse next year? Like, because we were talking about, like, teams that are at the bottom, and the Pistons. Like, let's say the Pistons improve. We know the other teams who are near the bottom, the Spurs and the Hornets. They're both going to get better, I think, like, massively better. The Wizards probably a little bit better, if you believe in Koulibaly. Who are the Pistons going to be fighting for the bottom?
Yeah, because Memphis is going to get better.
Oh yeah, forget about the situation.
I don't know that Portland makes a jump. I mean, because I would assume they continue to go youth with 2 more lottery picks. You mentioned it earlier. Like, I'm not sure what Utah does. I mean, like, obviously they have, like, Lauri Markkanen and some good players, but where's that going? Houston will be fine. Golden State still. I mean,
Maybe
they still
Brooklyn.
have those guys. Brooklyn is an interesting name. Like, I don't know how
It's just not many teams. Like,
no,
that's why I'm not worried about, like, how the Pistons are going to do. They're going to be in the bottom anyway, because so many teams are going to get so much better.
there's going to be a couple teams, right? Like, every year that injury to a star player or something like that changes their trajectory and their focus, or a disgruntled player or something. But yeah, I mean, I don't see them getting past 4 or 5 teams, right, in one offseason, which, again, like, I think it's fine. Go win 27 games, finish with the 6th worst record, and still put yourself in decent position for a draft pick in that 2025 class.
All right, this is another question I want to ask. I know it's, like, off topic. I'm still having difficulty shifting out of the Giddey trade in general. Do you think that Fontecchio is a starter for the Pistons for the majority of next season?
I do, depending on what they do in free agency. I really liked Fontecchio. I thought he was a good player. I liked that move at the deadline. I know some people questioned it. That was a really good 2nd-round pick and all of that. I get it. But I think I think that was, like, the ultimate proof of how you need to build out this team, where Fontecchio is a good player. He's not a great player at all. He's like a neutral defender, but even that looked competent compared to some of the stuff we saw. And then just the floor space. I don't know if I said it with you guys or not, but I think Fontecchio looked so good with the Pistons because he's the, like, one player who's actually playing in the role that he should be playing in. Like, he gets to go shoot threes, be a neutral defender, whatever. And he was able to do that and did it, I thought, at a really good job. And so I'm interested to see what that contract ends up being. And I would be perfectly fine, I guess, would be my answer, if he ends up starting the majority of the season. If they somehow acquire talent over him that makes as much sense in terms of 3-and-D, maybe a little bit better defensively, I'm cool with it. You get Fontecchio coming off the bench. That's really exciting, right? Like, but yeah, I would be fine if Fontecchio was a starting 3-man for this team for most of the year.
Sick. Bryce, do you have anything that you want to plug as far as your stuff goes? And do you have any crops that you want to sell? Do you want us to go buy your wheat from any place in particular? Do you have any cattle that we should be getting into here?
The wheat plug.
Just eat those products, help us out, support Kansas farmers and ranchers. And no, it's all good. So hopefully we can get it cut. That's all I care about right now. We need the rain that we spend 355 days praying for rain and moisture, and then we pray for 10 days without it, and kind of works in the opposite direction. So,
all right. I know that was kind of a send off, but I did remember one question I wanted to ask you. If you had to guess, which one of the young pieces is most likely to be moved?
I still think it's Jaden Ivey, if somebody is. I hate that. I wouldn't do it. I don't think I put a SAR very, very low. I mean, obviously Cade isn't in consideration here, at least for me. A SAR very, very low. I would put Jaden slightly above Jalen Duren, just based off how I feel the organization feels about these guys. So I would say Jaden Ivey.
Mickey, do you have an answer to that? Do you have a guess?
To see who would be most likely to move?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be out of the core four. It could just be out of the young players.
I'm going to say Duren just because of all the Claxton rumors. I don't necessarily think that they're going to bail on him, but the idea of Ivy with that Vinson influence maybe is more redeemable than a rim running center who doesn't play great defense, at least thus far.
I'm going to say, I think Beef Stew. I think he might be on the way out because while I love his defense, like I think his defense is great. Like watching him play defense in Giannis is like awesome. And I love that his shooting has improved so much. I have a hard time seeing where he plays on the roster because it's not the 4. So is he your backup 5? I don't know. That's a really small backup 5. I mean, it's cool because he's like a stretch 5. It's just, I don't know. And he's got a valuable contract and other teams covet him. I think if you replace him with like a 4 and you sign Claxton, then you have Duren and Claxton playing great together. And then you have a rebounder and you have a defender and they're both lob threats like nonstop. So I just think he's a little clunky on the team. So no shade to Stu. I know you're a new papa. Happy Papa's Day. Happy Father's Day, Stu. But be prepared. Everybody on the Pistons should be prepared. I think there's
a world where he gets squeezed out. No, I mean, you're right. Everybody who talks about signing Hartenstein or Claxton, it's like, okay, well, if you're going to sign these guys and place Duren, or you're going to draft Donovan Clingan or whatever, that probably means you don't need Isaiah Stewart anymore because I have no interest in him playing 100% of his minutes at the 4. So also I want to say, like, be prepared for the Pistons to be in on all of these free agents because these agents aren't stupid and they know that they can use the Pistons cap space as leverage to get their clients the deals that they want.
I'm going to change my answer really quick. I think Wiseman might be on the way.
Oh,
Is he a part of the core 4?
Big James.
One of the core 4.
All
Amazing.
The best to him. So, awesome. All right, that's been all our draft talk, all our future Pistons talk. Thank you so much for joining us, Bryce. Motor City Hoops, read the Substack, such a treat. Check out the Pistons Pulse, check out the Game Theory, and check out the Pistons, and check out fucking Detroit. Come to the city, baby. Come see it.
Yes.
Bryce, let us know when you're coming to town. Mickey, you can let me know when you're coming to town too. I'd love to see you, man. It's been years.
I will.
Great.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys.
Well, have a good one, man. We'll see you later. Bryce is going to go figure out the trade, so we'll catch him in a bit. Mickey, did you feel like we learned a fair share from this whole experience? I'm feeling pretty good about it as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to have someone on who knows what they're talking about.
What are you playing?
No shade to Conspiracy Carl. He definitely, he's got some ideas, sort of. But no, it was great having Bryce on. I learn a lot every time I listen to him on another pod, but especially when he comes on this one.
I love that he's open to so many names in so many directions, and he's honest about that. Hannah, that is not a conspiracy. There's no conspiracy about how good it is. But we'll have Conspiracy Carl back on in the near future. So as we brought up, Monty Williams was let go, correct?
It's true.
We miss him deeply. And you pointed out to me that he had a lot going on as far as after the games, more so than during the games.
It's true. Yeah. I'll say this for him. He definitely fell on his sword routinely. Never hesitated to take the blame for a loss. And we were actually, you brilliantly were able to cut together what you call a montage.
A montage. So without further ado, this is our tribute to Monty Williams. Good luck at your next venture. Enjoy all that money, man.
The booing doesn't bother me at all. I think it's a part of basketball. They want something to cheer about. We have to give them something to cheer about. The bottom line is it's my job. It's my responsibility. When you look at the record, coaches are graded on their records. That's the bottom line. I got to do a better job of just giving the ball to somebody else and get K playing on the second side. So that's something that I have to do a lot better job of organizing our guys. We've gone over it, and I got to do a better job of making sure guys know what they're supposed to do. So, I mean, it boils down to me teaching it better. That's what it is. I mean, I have to do a better job of allowing or helping our guys understand that once you play good defense for 12 seconds, sometimes 15 seconds, now that guy's got to guard the ball and you got to defend the cut. It's just that simple. And I haven't had our guys ready. We contested the shot, but it had no effect on the shot. So that's something that I got to continue to teach a lot better than I have. Yeah, you know, I still overdid it because I'm a ding-dong. I got to figure out the second unit for sure. We had a big meeting yesterday as an organization, and we looked at the numbers, all of our players from a roster analysis standpoint. And that's the one thing that I haven't tried this year that everybody was somewhat curious about, and I had to eat it. You know, I was like, well, I haven't done it, and I got to at least give him a shot. And we fell into it tonight. I kind of kicked myself for not doing it earlier. I put Asar in a tough spot, and he tried to make the best play he could, but that's on me. I put him in a tough spot. We have to have people that honor the organization and the jersey by competing at a high level every night. Not talking about execution, just competing. That wasn't it, and that's on me. You know, we brought it again tonight. We just had that lull in the second, and then we had a lull at the end of the third and beginning of the fourth that just put us in a bind. And that's on me to figure out that rotation. And that's on me to continue to teach the group you know, the importance of the ball. There were times where we played pretty good defense, got to stop, couldn't get the board. Again, that's on me to figure that out. We just haven't been able to close. And that's on me to figure out combinations and crunch time plays that we can run and get much better shots than we got when it was a 2-point game. That's a tough one. You know, I can't blame anybody for that situation. That's on me to make sure everybody knows what we're doing. This one's unbelievably hard to understand how we can get outworked in those categories. And you know, that is absolutely on me. You know, I was brought in here to change this thing. It's probably the most on me than anybody.
I make checklists constantly for all the stuff that I have to do. And listening to Monty's press conferences, I can only imagine and get existential dread and crazy anxiety thinking about how many things he has to fix to teach that's on him, like it's on me. Oh my God, I feel like Ashanti to put it on you. I can just hear Ja Rule in there. Where would he be without his baby? I don't know. But my guy, rough stuff. Speaking of rough stuff, Mickey.
Yes. I lost a bet.
You did lose a bet. You showed the WingStop. Shall we get into it? Are you
Yeah,
ready to
let's
go
do
all
it.
out?
Let's rip this. All right. We got 6 atomic wings. I went with ranch.
What an American.
All right.
I'm so happy that it's you and not me doing this. Like, when you proposed it on air, I was like, I wish you told me about this beforehand. Because
Yeah, you got really pale. you were like,
I
oh.
said no.
I asked your GI situation. You were like, mm-mm.
And for
All right,
those who don't know, that's
here's
a
to Monty.
gastrointestinal. To Monty. All right. Let's do it, Mickey.
Hooper. This is for Hooper.
How is it? Are you feeling Order of the Blazing Mouth?
It's coming on slow, but it's building. This, by the way, is just totally justifying my microphone and ring light purchase. This is what that stuff's made for.
We had to make sure we could really tell you were eating wings here.
I'm feeling cocky, Harry.
Not so bad. I'm seeing you kind of dominating this thing.
Well, my plan was to power through, but it's really not that crazy. But maybe that was a light dusting on that wing. Do you like flats?
I love flats. I'm pro flats,
Me too.
anti drums. I'm big into like the
Yeah,
pushing and getting
team
all
flats
off.
all day.
Team
We're
flats.
just
Yes, that's how it's done. I'm a little bit fastidious when it comes to eating, so I don't love getting like my hands messy and or my mouth, like just my face area. That's the part. And flats make it easier to not get like your surrounding lips area messy. How's the heat on your lips, man?
it's really I thought about milking it for the sake of content, but I don't want to front.
It's not bad.
It's really not bad.
Oh, WingStop. And this is their
This is
atomic.
actually okay. This one's kind of slopped up.
Okay.
This one's really okay. That one's got some stank to it,
Okay.
but maybe the B-dubs goes harder. But you know what? Like there wasn't a promotion that B-dubs would give out free wings if the Pistons won a game. So
Yeah, we stay loyal. WingStop can only get as hot as the Pistons, and it's not that hot. So that's
Tepid.
Yeah, you're just dominating these. This is just like I'm just watching you eat food. As Amanda Ellen says, ASMR chicken wing eating.
is that what people want?
That's I think
ASMR of dudes eating chicken.
that's what the people want.
I would do an OnlyFans of me just eating chicken wings. Would you subscribe to that?
No, but other people would. I wouldn't pay you extra money to do that.
Yeah. Just don't kink shame all my my fans.
I've got no problem with it. I'm just not a kink payer. I don't pay for any OnlyFans stuff because my wife and I share credit cards, and she doesn't need to know about that.
Smart.
Thanks. Even though she's watching right now, I honestly can't think of a single like OnlyFans type subscription I'd be into. If there was a funny one, I'd consider it. But
It's getting a little hotter, by the way.
yeah, it's building. It's a slow build. But you just said like a little. It's all of your fingers. It's all of your lips.
It is. It's everywhere. It's a big, big mess. Hold on. I'm going to get a little dab going here.
All right.
Oh, yeah. That's
So,
just
Look at
absolutely
that.
disgusting.
It's beautiful. So while you're getting hot, why don't you tell me your hottest Pistons take?
We should have seen, this isn't a hot take, but I think we should have seen Sasser start at the 2 next to Cade more.
Whoa. I think that's a pretty hot take.
Is it?
Yeah.
I really feel like that's where he's suited. As Bryce was saying, he's really more of a scorer than he is a point guard off the bench. And I think that still could have allowed J.I. to get plenty of minutes as a 6-man or maybe play all 3.
The more I think about it, not that I've been thinking about it too long, but just since you brought it up, I think it could be super nice because he is like an individual separator. You would get some Cade off-ball creation help. He's not like a hell of a catch and shooter, but does that matter all that much? I don't know. Like if it was him, Fontecchio, and Cade, like the 3 of those guys, 3 dudes who can really light it up from downtown.
Yeah. You're right. He is more of an off the dribble guy. Do you got a Pistons hot take, Harry?
My Pistons hot take.
Just listen to me chew as you think about it.
I'm really trying to think of a good one.
Is that distracting?
It's hard to have a hot take because no matter what direction you go in, it's probably going to be a better result for the Pistons as a whole. I don't think. I mean, just like Hooper said, I don't think Hooper's saying that the Pistons will never win if we never start a podcast. We need a podcast in order for them to win. I don't think the Pistons become a good team again until Sheed is back in with the organization and happy.
Like the front office?
I don't think he has to be a member of the team. I just think he has to be cool with the team. And right now, I think there's some stuff with like ownership in him that's not great. So I think until that gets resolved, and it's not like a crazy hot take, I just want to be more part of our whole world. He was such an awesome like character while he was here for his time. He's one of our he's essentially responsible for one of our 5 principles. That the ball don't lie. Ball shan't tell a lie.
Definitely. He was also part of the best 5 alive, which is one of the principles too. So he's related. I love Sheed so much.
3 in the D. He's a very prominent member of the principles. So that's my take. My hot take is that the Pistons organization will not be successful until they can ingratiate themselves to Rasheed Wallace again.
You know, Rasheed Wallace is the only Pistons player I've ever met.
What? Tell that story.
Met is a strong word. By the way, it's definitely not unhot, but I just want to show you.
You eat the whole thing already?
I ate 6 wings while we were talking.
You just mowed those down.
I was hungry.
Oh man!
Didn't even use a ranch. But I was a little kid. I was at the mall at Somerset Mall with my father. We were waiting in line at the Apple store. Behind us in line for the Genius Bar, Rasheed Wallace and a friend of his. My dad points it out to me, and he goes, you should tell him great game against San Antonio. So I turned around and I'm like, great game against San Antonio.
This was just last year.
Mr. Sheed.
Oh, yeah.
And he turns to his friend and he goes, I don't got time for this fan shit today. So that's my Sheed story.
Is that for real?
It's 100% for real. And I think it's just like the most Sheed reaction. Like he doesn't have time for me. And
oh my God.
Nor should he.
He didn't even say thanks, little man, or anything like that?
Nah.
Oh my God, dude.
No, dude, his iPod Shuffle was on the fritz.
I don't got time for this fan shit today. Oh man, I'm gonna make that a drop from you. I don't got time for this fan shit today. We're gonna be putting that.
Have you ever met a Piston?
I don't know. I don't think so, honestly. Never met a Piston. Did meet the Harlem Globetrotters. Got Holly. I think it's like Showbiz Jackson's autograph on my Harlem Globetrotter shorts. As far as Pistons go, no. I don't believe I have ever met.
Not
any.
yet.
Not any.
Once the pod takes off, you're gonna meet them all, and they're all gonna tell you to fuck off, just like she did.
Can I just have the mic in their face? Can you say I don't have time for this fan shit today?
It's kind of his catchphrase at this point.
Man, that's a good catchphrase. That's a good one to have. Nikki, we are 1 week away from the draft. It's not even a full week. I think we're just like 6 days away from it. Give me your one guess for what you think the Pistons are going to do. My one guess, and this will be my hot take. I think the Pistons will draft Tijs Salon after trading down.
Trading down and acquiring another pick?
Correct.
I hope they do that. I would love to just see us acquire assets. We are so depleted of picks. I feel like we're gonna draft Castle.
I honestly wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't have beef with it at all. If that's the thought process, great. The dude's 6'6", 6'7". He's a hell of a defender. He sees the game very well. I'm about it. Plus, Castle's a sick name. It would have been sick if we were still playing at the Palace. If we had
Castle in the
Palace, right? Whatever. We'll have a little bit of the Palace back. We got Castle. If that happens, that's great. I think there are very few things the Pistons could do that would make me upset on draft night. I think, and I think that's cool.
What would that be?
That would make me upset?
Yeah.
Drafting Rob Dillingham at 5 would make me upset. I think
Okay.
that dude's got bag. I love it. But we talked about it on part 1 with Bryce. If you weigh less than me, I have a hard time believing you up there. It's just rough. Like he's a small man, and like the defense is like it's a real issue. So that'd be the one thing that would make me upset. Even though I think he's a great player and will be a great player in the NBA.
All right, lock it in. Rob Dillingham at 5.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, my wife. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, everybody out there listening as well. If you can, like, subscribe, give us a follow, rate us on Spotify, rate us on Apple Podcasts, rate us on YouTube with a thumbs up. Give us one of these.
Good ratings.
Yeah.
Good ratings only.
Good ratings only. We don't deserve the bad ones yet. We're bringing positivity to the Pistons. We're a positive team. We brought you breaking news today with the Caruso trade, the Giddey trade.
I ate 5 wings that really hurt. Ow.
Ooh,
Scorching.
so spicy. You really are the spice lord, man. I bet if I had one of those, I would be crying for sure.
Well, maybe I can just keep losing bets, and we'll just keep doing this and upping the ante, trying different horrible things. By the way, Hannah, thank you so much for the new logo.
Mm-hmm. New logo,
Killed it.
new backdrop. She saw all the stuff that I did, and she's like, no.
What are you doing?
No.
Grow up.
She's great. And as you stated to me off air, it's nice to marry up. She married a project. When she met me, I was a hockey mullet, having cut off jean shorts, beer swigging, unemployed fool. And now, well, I'm unemployed. I'm growing a regular mullet. So I'm improving a little bit.
Is baseball mullet, hockey mullet? He's changed.
I just realized how little I've changed. But girls, you can change your man a little bit. I had a job for a while. We're just not at that point anymore. I had a career.
She fixed you.
Yeah. So I urge women to really try it. Hannah says not so much. I still dress bad. I still have bad hair. I'm still unemployed. But you know what, Hannah? I still work out, so there is still that. Mickey, you have any send-offs that you want to have going on? We got chickens. That's
don't.
right. No send-offs?
No send-offs, none. Just gonna, drink some milk, try to recover, but nothing.
All right. Then Pistons fandom, Pistons world, Order of the Blazing Horse members, followers, disciples, all that jazz. We'll see you after the draft. We'll have more news. We'll have more coaching, potentially. We'll see. But we'll definitely have more players on the team. And Mickey will have more dairy in his belly. I've been Harry Moros.
And I'm Mickey Jacobs.